Anthony Money, thank you very much for joining us once again on the Odd Shaped Balls podcast. This time it's a look back at the Workington Towns season of 2024. Just had a quick look through sort of results and fixtures and everything throughout the season. Would it be wrong to describe it as consistently inconsistent?
No, I think we couldn't get a consistent team out. I don't think I picked the same team consecutively 2 weeks in a row with the continuing mounting up of injuries. Even before we'd even sort of more or less sort of kicked off the ball, like Kean McPherson, um, he had an injury away from the club, so he was out for probably the majority of the season. Ellis Archer came sort of injured, so he sort of was out for the majority of the season. Then Dave Eccleston, right early on, needed a full knee reconstruction, so he was out for the season. Then Brad Taylor, he ended up being out for the season. Billy Southwood came sort of into the latter end of the season, had an injury in training. And then, we start season and Malik Steele was non-existent really with an ongoing illness problem. So Mal was sort of, played a couple of games, but just couldn't sort of, due to his sort of his welfare, couldn't sort of carry on sort of picking him. Um, and then obviously, Jared Samet comes to the club and, sort of makes an immediate impact and then sort of disappears for 10 weeks because of work commitments. And obviously, a player's, life away from rugby at part time is, that comes first. And, he's telling us he's got a job opportunity and end of the day, his main job sort of pays for his family and his lifestyle. So he sort of disappeared for sort of 10 weeks, and then three-quarters of season, probably about half of season. We have Ethan Bickerdike missing for about 8 weeks, Liam McNicholas missing for about 8 to 10 weeks, Stevie Scorley missing for about 8 to 10 weeks. We went through 7 warm players, bringing players in and out, and just couldn't get any consistency at all in team selection. And when we did, we won games on spin. So so it was just really tough with mountains of injuries. And I think in total we ended up with 61 players being injured through the course of the season, and it just absolutely crippled us. And I think the 1895 early rounds were, I think, really tough on League One teams because you're playing against Championship opposition, and it's really tough to compete. And we picked up quite a lot of injuries in that 1895 sort of cup, which was designed to sort of help League One clubs out more, give them more fixtures, generates more revenue. So I understand the process around that, but it was just we picked up a lot of injuries in that as well, even before our sort of league campaign kicked off. So yeah, it was a real difficult season in terms of injuries, and trying to get consistency in your team was really tough.
I remember having that conversation with yourself about that 1895 Cup where you're going, it's great, yeah, we've got our Cumbrian Championship neighbours as they
Mm.
were at the time, obviously Whitehaven and Barrow, we've got them coming. It's great to have them fixtures early doors, get the gates full, get that, get the stadium full and, get some money in early doors. But then that was a concern, and not just across yourself, across other sort of coaches, not just obviously League One, but Championship coaches as well, of having competitive fixtures so early into the season when lads are still trying to get their body back into condition. And you said there it wasn't just yourself that played the place. There was a number of clubs probably
Oh,
across both divisions that probably that had a place struggling all year because they were playing competitive games. They were probably maybe playing 25, 30, 35 minutes, and then rather say that maybe 15, 20 minutes you'd normally get in them early stages of pre-season. Sort of moving away from a season review, is that something you think would need to be looked at, or moving forward?
yeah, yeah. I think something needs to be done with it, especially for the sort of League One teams. Like it's sort of tough for them, to sort of be competing in those games, and I think sometimes as well we have smaller squads as well,
Yeah.
um, as well. So yeah, so I think it needs to stay because it gives you more games, doesn't it? And it generates more revenue as well. And it's a thriving competition, and it's one we should be proud to be involved in. There's no doubt about that. It's just how we manage that really for the sort of League One team.
Well, you ended pre-season on a high before going into the league campaign. The rearranged Ike Southwood Trophy with that interception. Was it from Johnny Hutton late on to grab it? A game of real sort of two, three, four halves, whichever way you want to look at it. And very different to what was the 1895 Cup tie, obviously a few weeks earlier. 1895 Cup tie, your Workington Towns side had gone into an early lead and Whitehaven had clawed back, and the Ike game was just completely different. Whitehaven had gone into that early lead, then Workington had got themselves ahead, Haven had clawed themselves back, and then it was that Johnny Hutton intercept late on, and obviously a great occasion for obviously the young man to get that intercept on what is on probably only early days of his professional career to obviously get the victory on that afternoon. And you always said, and I think you'd said previously going into the Ike game, you maybe didn't quite understand how much it had meant the first year, but you got the feeling in that second year, and that's why when you and Jonty had agreed to do, was it 17, maybe 18,
Yeah,
that you were given the fixture the respect it deserved, and that final opportunity in pre-season to go out on a high.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, in my second sort of Ike game with being a coach, I sort of understood it a little bit better in the second it out, and yeah, we went with, I think that might have been 18 players. I think we went with, and that was sort of to treat it like a full it out game, and we did, and we played really well. And we beat a Whitehaven team that was littered with really good players and who have held their own in the championship. The season just gone for large parts, and it was really pleasing for especially sort of our players at Town that they worked hard and managed to beat a really really competitive and good Whitehaven team. And yeah, just nice to we lost it the year before, and just nice to sort of get one back, and just pleased for the fans as well. I thought they turned out in the numbers in the first year, and they certainly turned out in the numbers in the second year. So I was really pleased for them too that we managed to bring it home, and it was just good for all the club actually, for all the hard work that had been put in the season before, and the hard work that continued in building a squad for the second year. So just pleased for everybody at the club that we managed to sort of get a bit of silverware.
Going into that League One campaign now, and it didn't get much tougher, did it? Obviously, the top two favourites for the who expected to be vying for the title was Oldham and Keighley. You sort of, everyone else had been written off, maybe rightly or wrongly, because the top two slots were filled by obviously Oldham and Keighley. So it wasn't going to get much tougher when you welcome Oldham first up and then go to Keighley the week after. And had injuries started to sort of bite at that point? I'm having a look at the results: 48-10 at home to Oldham and 58-16. Was obviously injuries a big part of that in the early stages of that campaign?
Yeah, we played Widnes in the friendly game, didn't we? And that was financially viable for our club to do that. And then obviously we played the 1895 two games, and then we rolled into Oldham and Keighley. So we played five championship teams on spin. If you want, because really, let's be honest, in the recruitment of what Oldham did and the recruitment of what Keighley did, looking at it and the spend that it's a championship team really on paper. So it was really, really, really tough. And we went in, came off back of the 1895 Cup, but quite a number of injuries, and moving into the Oldham and Keighley picked up more. So yeah, it was tough, and yeah, we just had to get through it. But the lads learnt a lot from it as well about themselves, and sort of when you're facing adversity, it galvanises you as a group. And yeah, we just dug our heels in, rolled our sleeves up. Yeah, we had injuries, but you always got to look through games, and you've got to take some positives out of out of some defeats, and look at some good things that you did in the game against really good opposition. And you think to yourself, well, if we can do that against them in some parts of our game, then when we play the other teams that are maybe at an even keel with us in terms of quality and in terms of the strength and depth in the team, then you stand a chance of being competitive with the other teams, and that's what we did.
Rightly, yeah, exactly what you did. Because then the following four fixtures, there were four victories. There was that first victory of the season which was a battle of the basement clubs at the time. I don't want to remind you of that too much, but it was, it was only round three, but it was at Easter Saturday over at Newcastle, and then back to back victories against sort of teams you knew you'd be vying with potentially that third place, the likes of Rochdale and Hunslet. You defeated Rochdale at home, Hunslet away, and then a comfortable victory against a Cornwall side. It looked comfortable on paper. From what I remember, though, that first half of that game was a real tight affair. So it was put 4 victories on the bounce, and fantastic to start getting some consistency with the results.
Yeah, and that's what we'd worked towards, and we sort of identified, a group of fixtures of where we could sort of get our season back on track, and we really worked hard. A lot of time and effort went into making sure we got what we wanted out of those games, and we did, and we set a few goals, and we achieved them, and sort of started our season sort of back on track. So I was really pleased with where we were at.
And then, just like you said, just looking at a couple of them games, obviously you knew, obviously it's sort of the middle of 2 of that 4. Obviously Rochdale at home and Hunslet away. Obviously we've seen what Hunslet have done now as we speak, and as we're recording, it'll probably be the League One playoff final on Sunday. Obviously that will have happened, Babel. I say the League One playoff final, it's the promotion relegation playoff, which he's still getting people asking it now, is baffling my head. But Hunslet have obviously made that. Hunslet have made that obviously into against Swinton, and so it shows obviously they've went to Keighley, and shows obviously what they've got in their squad, and obviously Gary Fortin done a fantastic job towards the end of the season as well with the Hornets to get them on a decent run of form before going into the playoffs. But yeah, them to get the victories against them 2 sides must have been promising after what had been a stop-start opportunity to start that League One campaign.
Yeah, we're the only team outside the top 2 to beat Hunslet twice at their place. We lost at home with 2 points. Matty Henson does score a try, and unfortunately, sometimes you don't get Robert Green, and we didn't get it. So that'd have been another victory. And we're the only team outside the top 2 that's beat Rochdale twice. And it's no secret, Rochdale had injuries very early on. And then they managed to, get some dual regi and get some loans in. And towards back end of the business end of the season, their players started to come back. And they picked up some form. So yeah, we were the only team really outside the top 2 to beat the grand final winners twice, and to get the guys who finished third at Rochdale, we beat them twice. So yeah, so I was really pleased with that, and I knew that if we could get the right team out and get a bit of consistency in performance, that we would beat Rochdale and we would beat Hunslet. Why wouldn't we? We've got a team to do it when they're all out, and we did. So yeah, really pleased with that, and couldn't fault the players' efforts, and we got everything out of those games that we deserved.
Following that, though, obviously another horrendous run. Really, 60 feet started with Midlands at home, and then a dusting down by Rochdale at Rochdale, and then you mentioned that 2-point defeat to Hunslet. Another 2-point defeat the week after at North Wales, and then meeting Oldham and Keighley again. So it come at that wrong time, that Oldham Keighley meeting. But I remember speaking to you, I think it was after the Midlands game before you were going to Rochdale, and you were really disappointed about what was served up in sort of that game, and how Midlands had come up and obviously being able to get the result, and then, like you say, going to Rochdale a week after and conceding 56. It was a tough couple of weeks. It was a tough 5, 6, 7 week period, but it was definitely a tough couple of weeks, than Midlands Rochdale games.
Yeah, at home, I thought Midlands, played really well, and I thought they deserved their victory at home. I didn't have any excuses. I just thought, no, they'd worked hard, they'd come to us, and they'd done a job. And fair play. And sometimes that happens in sport. And just because we're playing Midlands doesn't mean we have the right to beat them. We have to earn the right to beat them. They're a good team. And Matt Dunning's a smart coach, very experienced, and he's put a really good squad together there. And the dual reg with championship teams and Super League teams, and they've got that at their disposal as well. So we had to earn the right to beat Midlands, and I wasn't surprised we got beat. I knew we'd get beat if we didn't perform, and we did. So you have to give credit where credit's due. And then we go to Rochdale, and we were without Jordan Burns, we were without Kieran Walker, we were without Matty Henson. I don't think JJ Keys played. So you're talking we're going to Rochdale, missing a large chunk of our spine, and which and Connor Saunders that play 80 minutes at 9. I think we brought Pony in, who'd basically not done anything for a considerable length of time, and so he wasn't match fit. We brought Tapu in. He come over with a knee injury, and so we had two middles there who were injured and not fit. So we got a bit of a dusting, and Rochdale have got that capability in their team to do that, and they've not just done it against us; they've done it against top teams like Keighley. So if you're not if you've not got your sort of full strength side out, and you're missing quite a bit of your spine, it's difficult. But it's still no excuse for sort of the performance, and the players sort of certainly knew about that after the game. But that's sport, and you've got to keep working hard and sticking to your beliefs and your philosophies as a coach, and and keep working hard as a group, and don't have a blame culture. And that's what we did. And then, like you've just touched on, we were really unfortunate. 2 games with 2 points. We go to Crusaders and we're winning with a minute to go, and the referee goes 6 again with them on the 4th tackle. And Crusaders just snatched it at the end. But again, we were there like with a depleted team. Really unfortunate against us at home not to get the rub of the green with a decision of Matty Henson. And again, that's sport. That's what happens. But the performances were there, and we were digging in and we were working hard. And we could have won those games, but that's just life. And then, like you say, you're coming then on the back of Oldham and Keighley, which again we pushed really close. I think Oldham, it was 8-0 on 60 minutes. The second half against Keighley, we won the second half. We just give too much away in the first half. But that's where those inconsistencies come in your performance, when your team's so inconsistent in terms of your selection and in terms of your positions in your selection. It's really hard to sort of get a role and put things together. But in terms of the effort from the players, I couldn't fault them. There was always reasons behind some results that didn't go our way.
One thing I'm looking at there, and obviously you've mentioned it it's been the key word really so far, hasn't it? Consistencies. The consistency in when you're playing, because obviously that gap in League One, I'm looking, there was you played Midlands, then there was a week off, and then played to Rochdale. Played Rochdale, week off, then play Hunslet. Play Hunslet, week off, then play North Wales, and then it was sort of then 3 games in a row. There was no sort of consistency, especially in that middle part of the season. Obviously, there was it was well documented that League One was short on numbers. That's why the 1895 Cup was changed. There was no idea if Newcastle was going to be there to sort of last minute. But, obviously short on numbers anyways, even with Newcastle being in the league, you probably wanted another team in there at least, a la London Scholars. But, how difficult is it to try and maintain that consistency when lads aren't playing week in, week out? I suppose it can be a godsend in some way in terms of, you mentioned the injuries as we mentioned early doors, but then you're not able to get that consistency that on the field, because you're not there week in, week out. You're stopping and you're starting, which we've said a couple of times already.
Yeah, you've got to deal with that, though. Like every team's got to deal with it. That's just how the league's sort of set up. And at times it is a godsend. You think, yeah, we can, have a bit of a rest here, get some opportunities, get some bodies back. Maybe not train as much as you would normally leading into a game. Gives players opportunity to recover. But also you can use it sometimes as well to have a little bit of a mini pre-season in between, sort of, to sort of keep the players on the toes. But we were just in a position where when we did have a week off, it was like, phew, we need to get we need to get these bodies right. So we sort of didn't, have that opportunity to, have like full training sessions with numbers at training. We just didn't have the bodies on the field. Yeah, we trained sometimes maybe once a week when we didn't have a fixture, just to keep the lads, going. But in that training session, it were difficult to sort of get any quality out of it in terms of what we really needed. We had no game. But you've just got to manage those inconsistencies in the games, stop starting it. That's just where the division is, and it's same for everybody. But I'd have just liked to, if we'd have had that opportunity, to have that decent squad numbers in terms of players being able to train and maybe go at it that little bit harder when we were off, then that probably benefited us a bit. But it was a case of just resting up for our fellas and making sure that bodies were patched up when we was due to turn out the week after that.
Moving on then, we've hit July already, but a perfect July. Dust Newcastle away. I think that would have been the Gateshead Stadium, was it, at that time? Then a tight fixture against Rochdale, as you'd expect. Go down and make that long trip to Cornwall, and we'll discuss about that in a minute, and the backing that you had obviously down in the Duchy. And then another cracking encounter with Hunza, like I say, 4-4. You can't be any happier or can't get any better than that.
Yeah, we went on, we set some goals going into that Newcastle game and looked at the fixtures of what we had to. We knew what we needed to do to make sure we made those playoffs, and we really worked hard for it. And I think it was the manner in our victories as well. And we worked on a lot of effort areas in terms of like kick pressure, kick chase. Completion really worked hard on being higher. We concentrated on our skill set being better. We changed a few things up in training for the skill set of the players. We probably did a bit of repetitive stuff, going over skills and things like that. And it benefited us, and we went on that roll. And we were the only team to go to Cornwall and actually put a big score on them outside the top two. And I think we only conceded 8 points away. Yeah. And we were the only team to do that. To go down to Cornwall and really show our intent, and we did. We absolutely, properly got we physically we really got on top of them and really got a well-earned result. And the result never looked in question. So really pleased with that, and just really pleased with the fantastic support of our fans as well, who made the journey. It's really, really tough. That it's enjoyable. I enjoy going into Cornwall. I like the concept of it. I think the fans there are really passionate, get behind their team. They really make it. The place is quite daunting at times when you're there. Like, they proper get behind them. And it was a real good weekend. And I was just really thankful for our supporters who went down there, and what is a massive cost as well to people. I couldn't thank our fans enough for doing that. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant weekend.
The last couple of seasons, I've been lucky enough to make the trip to Toulouse with Whitehaven, following Whitehaven, and you mentioned it's probably cheaper to get to the south of France than it is to get to the south of England, which is mental. Yeah. I know, obviously, I know the sort of Derwent Park Supporters Club is it the Travellers Rest Supporters Club as well? Obviously, they've all sort of probably clubbed together and try and make sure that we get group bookings and sort of such things like that. But yeah, it's almost cheaper to get to the south of France than it is to get to the south of England. And of course, we're talking very, very south of England, of course. But going over to Newcastle, getting planes down to Newquay, and then sort of coming in on the day of the game, it's not just the cost, which obviously is a big cost, especially with the times we've been going through over the last few seasons, but it's the organisation and hoping everything goes right, just to ensure they can come and watch your side, as it was at the time, play 80 minutes of rugby league. Outstanding.
Yeah, just really grateful for that. It was they made the weekend, and we focused on that as a group as well. We really appreciated, and we wanted to give the fans something back, to sort of say, look, it's costing, I was saying to our players, we're fortunate. I said, we get the trip down free, all food's laid on for us on the coach, we want for nothing. I said, we get to where we're staying, all food's laid on for us, we get transported backwards and forwards, and if you win, you get decent winning pay, you get paid for being here. And I said, we really need to show what it means to us as a group to get this win for the fans. And we really focused on that because of those points you've just touched on about the cost for people to do it. And we just wanted to show the fans how much we appreciated it. And with a performance, and a good one.
Going in then to August, and what was going to be the final sort of pivotal month of the season, and it was back-to-back defeated to start off with. Another tight encounter with North Wales, and a tightish encounter with sort of Midlands as well. And it was, you said you knew what you needed to do to get in the playoffs, but I imagine obviously the aim would have been to finish up as high as you can. And if you could have got them couple of points against North Wales and Midlands, and of course it's all ifs, buts and maybes, the playoff might have took a slightly different route for yourself. As an example, you might have been playing Midlands at home as an example, or whatever it may have been, whenever you'd finished in that sort of playoff structure. But it must have been tough knowing, because obviously what was going to be on the line and such things like that, that having such tight defeats, especially that home one against North Wales.
Yeah, I think for me, the three games cost us to not finish probably joint fourth on points with Hunslet. And it was Hunslet at home, and it was Crusaders both away and at home. They're the three games that cost. You got 6 points there. And they're the three games that cost us. Losing at home to Crusaders, we were in the game. We were totally in control, and we end up sort of one of our players getting sent off, and then obviously it just sort of deteriorated from that point really. But that's what happens, and you sometimes when you're down to 12, it galvanises as a group. But it just took a lot of energy out of us, I thought, especially coming off back of a tough sort of season. It sort of killed our energy levels a little bit. And the tight defeat against sort of Midlands, like I've touched on, they're a good team, and we went there and we gave a good performance, and they were toing and froing a little bit, in terms of who was in the lead and stuff like that. So, in terms of the sort of two defeats, you can give reasons for them. It was never for a lack of effort, commitment, or planning. We were in all those games, and sometimes things happen in games, and it just sometimes then you don't get on the right end as a result what you want.
Them final two games, then real sort of one end of the spectrum to the other, wasn't it? It was the 46-0 at home to Newcastle, and any coach loves a zero, especially if you're going in at half time. Imagine with that zero still on the board, was the message we keep the zero? Was that your aim then? Which obviously you weren't able to get, and then obviously switching later on, obviously that celebration at Oldham for the home side as they were wrapping up the league leaders, to be nilled yourself. It was a real going from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah, it was obviously because I think at the time we was concerned about points difference as well with Crusaders, but we'd done enough going to the Oldham game to know that we were in the playoffs. We'd made sixth, and you're on an adding to nothing going to Oldham with them wanting to lift the trophy on the day, especially at home, and being back at Boundary Park, is it? Being back at Boundary Park as well. They've made a big thing about being back there. So yeah, in the Oldham game though, we really focused on effort areas and trying, and there were some nice compliments. It was only 8-0 for 30 minutes. We'd put a lot of pressure on their line, and it was. Yeah, as soon as Oldham sort of went into another gear, they have the players and they have the personnel to really punish you, and they did that. But there's one thing we didn't do: we didn't give up, and we stuck in there. And it was just nice to, hear the Oldham players saying, real tough game, Matt. Even though the result was quite a bit of a margin, it sort of said your players just never give in. It was like smashing us and wanting to run over top of us. And so, yeah, in terms of our effort and that, and there were some bits again that I picked out of that. Ready to sort of go and focus on when we played Midlands. So again, you've got to be realistic of where you're at there, going to Oldham, what's at stake for them. We knew we were in the sort of playoffs, so there was just some areas that I wanted us to focus on, and then we could take that into the Midlands game, and we did. So yeah, it is what it is, that one.
And then, obviously, you mentioned you'd made the playoffs, you'd made the sixth place. It was always going to be tough, whatever you were going to have to do. You knew you were going to have to do it away from Derwent Park, the fibrous community stadium. It was always going to be tough, and a sort of back and forth encounter once again. I've got it up in front of me. You went in front really, really early stages. Potentially, I think it might have been your opening set, if not the opening set of the game, and then they sort of hit back, but it had that playoff feel about it with is it Jake Sweeting knocking over 3 penalty goals as well. You knew how important it was going to be, and then there was, it was like I said, sort of back and forth with neither side really giving an inch, and it only coming down to another penalty goal in that sort of final few minutes of the second half.
Yeah, I couldn't have asked any more of the players how they performed at Midlands, and I thought it was a poor end to what had been a really good contest. That it was a bit of a harsh penalty, and to lose it with a penalty goal, it was a real harsh decision. I just thought it was a little bit of a bitter end. I thought he did deserve to lose on what was a harsh penalty, but what sort of gave Midlands a victory. But it was a playoff game that you'd expect to be at that sort of intensity and that sort of level of very close. There were nothing between us as teams, nothing at all between us. And sometimes decisions happen in a game in terms of from an official, and there's also decisions sometimes what happens as players. Sometimes come with a couple of errors or a couple of penalties and what have you. And again, that's just being in a sport. But yeah, I thought we were really unfortunate to not get a little bit more at Midlands than what we did. But taking nothing away from Midlands, they stuck to their task and got what they needed out of the game, which was the victory. So again, I just thought the two evenly contested teams. It was a real good contest, and there's always got to be one winner. And unfortunately, it was on the day.
I mean, you've mentioned your contests with Midlands, and obviously they made history in making the playoffs for the first time. Mark Dunning has done a fantastic job, as you've mentioned, with them, and he's really starting to build a side there that, yeah, they've had sort of people coming in from Super League clubs and they've heavily from Sheffield as well in terms of the dual registration, but they're signing a lot of them players for next year. The likes of Bass and Crimes, they're going to be their own players sort of next year. So it just shows what a job he's doing and what a project, for the want of a better phrase, he's probably building his mark because to get players to come from, even coming from South Yorkshire to Midlands, it's still a good trek. So it's probably similar to in terms of the Cumbrian geography of how much a challenge it can be to be able to build the squad he has. It shows he's doing something right there.
Listen, yeah, any coach, is whatever tools he's got at his disposal, you use them to your advantage, don't you?
Yeah.
And fair play, he's got the opportunity to dual reg with Sheffield. I think they do something with Wigan and Castleford, and then he uses it to his advantage. But he also uses his own players as well, where he's got from Super League environments. I think their catchment area of where they are. I think they train over in Yorkshire, so the catchment area is quite good for him as well. And obviously they play the games at Midlands. I see. Is it Telford? Is it they've been put into Challenge Cup, haven't they? And they're in Midlands.
Yeah,
I think they've won the Midlands division.
They won the Midlands Premier League. Yes.
Yeah. So I know there's connections there, and I know Mark will be tapping into that as well. And so there's room for growth there when you've got a team in the Midlands there who have been invited to play in the Challenge Cup, and you've got a team running out in the Midlands playing in League One who are competitive and finished fifth in the league and are looking like to build and go stronger and stronger. So fair play, and yeah, it's really pleasing to see.
One thing we've talked about all the way through, Muzzer, is consistency, and this is something I've just thought of checking while we were talking, is how many players you'd use this season. Do you know how many it is?
I reckon it's in six. Is it six? I'm sure it's in 60s.
No, it's not quite that high. That was obviously the amount of injuries, so players, with individual injuries.
Yeah.
Go on. It's 41 players. And obviously I've followed Whitehaven all year, obviously as I do, and I thought Whitehaven had 43. So I didn't. You obviously talk about quite how many players you had used, but I didn't quite realise it was many as 41. And you mentioned the likes of, Dave Eccleston. Dave only played 3 games. You mentioned the likes of Ellis Archer. He only played 4 games, and there's plenty of players there that you just look and you think, well, if they were there majority of the season, I mentioned Johnny Hutton earlier on. He only played 8 games. Jake
Yeah.
Lightowler only plays 6 games. So there's Stevie Scully only plays 13 games. Malik Steele only plays 4, and you know what I mean. It's a real It's that's I didn't really I knew you'd had a number of injuries, but when you look there and you go, that's to some key personnel who've missed the majority of the season, and that's probably where the undoing was at times.
And that's when you talk about those inconsistencies there,
Yeah,
and that's what that brings. But how remarkable is it though that we still made the playoffs for
yeah,
for 2 years in a row? We still made the playoffs, and we've done it with largely community based team.
hmm
And so that's something I'll be very proud of, and I know the rest of the coaching staff are really proud of that as well. The time and the effort that we put into those players, time and the effort the players put in as well to training hard and buying into what he wanted to do. And, to go through a season with so many challenges as that we did, and to still make the playoffs, still make your goal and get in the playoffs and only get beat by 2 points against a very good Midlands team away from home, then yeah, I'm very happy with how the season went. Would I have liked to have been finished fourth or third? Yeah, of course. If the team was, if we had a full strength team every week, I've no doubt about we'd have been up there as well. And just before we go off, I just want to really pay a massive compliment to Dean Muir at Hunslet. What a job he's done there with a real small squad, um, and managed to get to the grand final, win it, and he's a game away from getting promotion to the championship. So I just really like seeing that. You look at your Keithley's and your Oldhams, and yeah, Oldham's a success story, but that's a success story for this year. That and it just shows that a team who can be put together, bit of consistency in the team selection, and really buying into what he wanted to do there, it can be done. And yeah, just want to take my hat off to him and just congratulate him. Think, yeah, what a job he's done. So fair play, and it gives hope for us all.
Muzza, we've got 2 minutes left, and I want you to have the final word. We've got 2 minutes left because we're cheap and we use Zoom
Yeah,
and we only use 40 minutes. But I want you to have the final word in terms of your time at Workington Town, the 2 seasons. I know your final weeks was sort of fans probably not happy that you were going to be leaving the club. There was obviously, I know the supporters clubs were unhappy that you weren't going to be staying, but your final word in around about 90 seconds on your time at Workington.
I just love my time at Workington. I've made a lot of good friends there. I love working with the coaching staff and the players. Really, really good set, and just really appreciate the fans who got behind us. And I think they could see how hard we were working as well, and the difficulties we were facing. And yeah, I've got nothing but fond memories, and I've got nothing but compliments to say about the club. They worked really hard in terms of trying to build things in the community. A lot of the charity days that they done, I was really immensely proud to play my small part in that, and sort of being there and sort of doing what we could as a group. The community days they did on the field of Seaton and Maryport and all the teams around there. I think it's a real good example of what can be done and bringing that sort of community into your fold. So yeah, just really pleased, enjoyed it, but everything has come to an end. Did what I wanted to do there, left the team in a better place than what I found it, and that was my job. So enjoyed it, and we move on and to pastures new, and let's see what happens in the future. And I'm looking forward to it as well.